Right, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to this inner circle. I'm just going to adjust this our makeshift stand here, and welcome to the inner circle for everyone who has joined us this evening. I'm here with a good friend of mine, actually, Nick Holden, ex-Booty, ex-Forces, but we're not going to hold him at that against him. So, but no, it's great to have you here, Nick.
Nice to be here.
And thank you for everyone joining us. If you're joining us tonight and you don't know what this is about GDPR. If you don't know what it's about, we're all about to find out very quickly indeed, because there is an expert in the house. Thank God. We're going to talk tonight about GDPR. It's half an hour only, so by 8 o'clock, we will have finished this. And at the end of it, I will issue some notes. Nick very kindly has got some great stuff actually, and some great links. Tonight we can't tell you everything about GDPR, but certainly for those in the care sector, and that's what tonight is about. We're going to point you in the right. Well, I'm not going to point you in the right direction. I've got a good friend here who's going to point you in the right direction and just give us a bit of a. So Nick, welcome, buddy.
Thank you.
It's been too long, actually.
It has, but I think we've both been quite busy in our own little worlds. But yeah, no, it's nice to see you again, and hopefully I can pass some good advice on to people in the inner circle and help them at least start the journey, if they haven't already, around the new data protection laws that come into force 25th of May.
Oh my God! What, this year?
Yeah, less than 20 days. 25th of May it becomes officially live legislation. So yeah, it's quite important that if you haven't started, or if you have, that you get some of the key elements involved in it. GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, is a European piece of legislation. However, for most people, unless you're trading into Europe or abroad, it will be the UK Data Protection Bill, which is on its last reading in Parliament at the moment. However, it encompasses GDPR, predominantly because a lot of businesses do business in Europe. Therefore, to be able to continue that even after Brexit, we need to be able to do that. And again, it also affects companies outside of the EU. If any company outside of the EU processes European resident information, they have to be involved with GDPR as well. So it's, although we're talking this, it's huge. It is huge.
It is massive, and I'm sure big companies, your big Tesco's, your big Sainsbury's of this world. I'm sure they've been dealing with this for the last year or so. I've also just got to say that if anyone's got any questions for Nick as we go along, then please. Just put them on the webinar, and we'll sort of read those off. And at the end, we'll do a quick summary and upload some things onto the inner circle. But so this is a big juggernaut. It's coming towards us. And whilst you're saying, if you're dealing with Europe and all the rest of it, the reality is, mate, is that I'm sitting before you here as a registered manager, little care home, like most people here, just a little care home out there. I'm thinking, how does it affect me? What sort of stuff should I be doing? What sort of, I'm worried because I've got a lot of stuff on my mind at the moment, and I'm thinking, right, but I also have got, I keep hearing about this GDPR. So GDPR, mate, what does it mean?
In a nutshell, basically, it's the beefing up of data protection laws. Obviously, the one that is about to be superseded, the Data Protection Act 1998. UK has been obviously one of the more stringent around that, but obviously with the likes of, and I think a prime example will be Cambridge Analytica, where Facebook information was taken from there. And, that was only a couple 100,000 people where the information was drawn from, and off the back of that, millions of people's data was taken off their profiles, and then it ended up in someone like Cambridge Analytica's hands, use it for something totally different than what it was expected, probably of the original people, but obviously those people who didn't know their data was theory. So as you can imagine, that's why Mark Zuckerberg has been in front of Congress and the House of Representatives, and in the UK as well, because that's exactly what GDPR, or data protection, is about. Improving individuals' rights, and we're all data subjects, we're all individuals. We wouldn't want our data used. Your data. You turned up, you get all your phone calls. I hear you're in a car crash. Can we help you? Where did that data come from? Where did those numbers come from? And what it should do is, not overnight, but it should start to stop that happening because of consent.
Okay. So all those. So why GDPR? Is it to stop all this sort of, from cold calling to abuse of people's data, particularly if they didn't know about it and didn't consent to it, and and I can understand that, because we've all been on the receiving end of car crash and all that sort of stuff, and the cold calling. But I've got a little care home. I'm thinking, does that really apply to me? I'm thinking now, I've got some, you said before, just think, what sort of data do I hold? And I'm thinking, well, the data I hold, I've got stuff on residents, because and I've got stuff on staff, and I've got maybe a little email list that I quite like to tell people about our barbecue that's coming up for Care Home Open Day. So, so there's a little bit of marketing, a little bit of staff, a little bit of residents. Obviously, it's only electronic data that GDPR is all about.
It covers all forms of data, whether that's paper or electronic. Right. Personal data, so let's talk about what is personal data. So personal data is about a living individual, so living people. But that is things, names, email addresses, telephone numbers, any information that can help you identify an individual.
Yep.
That even includes business email addresses. So if it's nick.holden at whatever the business address is, that identifies me even within a business. If it's enquiries at, that's slightly different, because it's not identifying an individual. So even business email addresses can be identified as personal information. But going back into the context of what we want to talk about here tonight, you do hold staff data. You hold all their personal details. You may also hold things like ethnicity, sexuality, religion, etc. All these things are personal, but also sensitive information. And the way you have to control it is, it's an extension of what you currently do. You need to lock it away. You need to restrict access to it. It shouldn't. You shouldn't leave your drawers open in your filing cabinet, so anyone within the staff can go and look at records. Passwords on computers. Where do you store it on your computer?
Underneath the keyboard. Underneath
the keyboard. Or I've seen some doors where they put the security door pass lock on the side of the door frame. Yeah. But I think it's also not just about that. It's who you potentially share that data with as well. Apart from around the security of that data, who do you share it with? So some businesses may share that data with an accountant to do the payroll.
Yeah.
You need to ensure that those people, those processors, are protecting the data in the same way. So some of the key things here is about making sure the third parties are controlling your data in the way that you've asked them to do. So a lot around having the right contracts in place, so they know sort of what they do with it.
Yeah.
You're aware of what they do with it, so you can inform the people whose data you're holding what's happening to it. So for an example, member of staff, you're holding this data because you're going to want to pay them. You want to be able to do a clearance check, security check, DBS check. You want to be able to pass it to your accountant to pay them, etc., etc. So if you're even maybe a couple of chain care homes, and you may have somebody who travels between, and they have a company car, who else do you pass it on to?
Yeah.
A company car lease company or a pension company. So again, you've got to, in theory, you need to identify the data you have and where do you use it, share it.
So it's not just the stuff you've got in your hands or your filing cabinet or on your computers or in that archive, which is in the basement and never locked. And so I'm now thinking, right, so the first thing I'm thinking now, now Nick's been here, I'm thinking, right, have a little, get a whiteboard, decide, or a piece of paper, decide where you have groups of data. And what I've realised now, I thought it was just electronic, but so it's paper as well. So anything that we can identify people, review that. So I'm thinking, right, well, we've got a couple of computers. We've got about 3 computers actually in the main office. There's also a nurse's station, a couple of computers in there. So I'm now thinking, how secure are they? What is the data on those? And it might be stuff that's going back years and years and years. So do I need to retain it? I'm thinking, how secure is that office? I'm thinking, is there anything on notice boards which is now sort of going to breach us because it's now identifiable with an individual or an object or whatever how we describe. I'm thinking archives. I'm thinking, dusty archives now in attics and everywhere else. I'm thinking, right, obviously now is the time to have an archive policy. Should have one anyway, so we start to bin that sort of stuff that we don't need to keep. I've also now got to start talking about who I share this stuff with, which previously never even crossed my mind. So accountants and everything else, and are they in line with GDPR?
Yeah, and I think really, 30 minutes today, we're getting very near the date, and you've either done nothing or you've done something and you've done research. So just really the things I'd like to cover today, some of the key things you really need to be aiming to try and do for in and around the 25th or just past it. This whole piece anyway is, very few companies will be what they call compliant.
Yeah.
I would say meeting the requirements of, because what is compliant? There is no set mark like an ISO standard where this is what you go to. So what things you need to be able to do. So you've just mentioned there, get a whiteboard, a piece of paper, look at your data inventory. What data do you have, types of, where do you hold it, paper, electronic, archived on a server here or a server there. So data inventory, data flow, what do you do with it? One of the mandatory requirements is
just taking some notes in there. Go on.
What I will do, I'll pass it obviously on to yourself, Jonathan, is I will give you a little presentation of slides which just touches really the really brief points about the things you need to look at. So, your activity. So an activity, a processing activity would be a new member of staff joins, or you advertise, application form. The application form comes to you to review. You go then to a interview. So all this data is moving along that line. You offer them the job. They fill in the form. So again, that is an activity. So an onboarding of a member of staff as a leaving a member of staff. An admission or a new entry to there is a process. Invoicing is a processing of personal data. So really what you need to do is, and I would generally suggest a whiteboard or a flip chart. Drawing it, I always find, is the easiest way of going through, because it's there and it's visible. You're not trying to do it all in your brain. And again, don't do it by yourself. Involve your team. Even on this piece here where you're identifying stuff, involve your team, because of different people will be doing different jobs and processing data differently. But as a project as a whole, share it out. So data inventory, data activities, where does that data go? So again, on a board, I would say, you draw the data in here, so you'll pass it to doctors, physiotherapists potentially, and there is a great diagram. I think it might have been on the Care Provider Alliance website. There's like an infographic which shows potentially all the routes out, and you can look at that and maybe cross things off or circle things that are there, but it just gives you an idea of where your data is going. In some cases, if you go to the NHS, you'd think they protect it properly, but you need to ask the question, are you compliant to GDPR or data protection? So once you've done that, you need to look at things like your privacy statement. Now, your privacy statement is really crucial, because that's telling people what you're doing with that data. So what data you're taking, what you're doing with it, who you're sharing with it, how long you'll hold it.
So I'm thinking, so I now need to inform people that we're doing our best to be compliant. So we understand and we recognise GDPR, it's coming, and therefore this is what we're doing about it. So I'm thinking now group. So I need to inform my staff.
Yes.
I need to inform my residents.
Yes.
I need to inform the relatives and the families of those residents.
Absolutely.
I've got my suppliers.
Yes. Yep.
And I've also got then the third parties, such as care clinicians, care professionals, who are all sort of out there, who are either requesting information or receiving information from me.
Mm-hmm.
So I need like a little spider diagram now.
That is absolutely the best way to, but do it in clumps. Don't try and do one big one, because everything will get lost. So take one activity and do a spider or mind map, whatever you want to call it, for that activity. Then do the other activity, and therefore you can see, because if you do something too big, I will guarantee you'll lose things in it, and it just becomes a mess. So each activity, look at that. So there's things like that. So your privacy statement, you need one for your staff because you're doing something different, and you need one, as you said, for your residents. That's for you, like I say, you want to put that one probably on your website if you have one. Once you've done that, you need to look at your data protection policy to make sure that's up to date, because it is different. There are different things around rights to erasure, rights to non-process. So there are all these additional rights that people have that need to go in there. And again, if you look on things like Care Provider Alliance, National Care Association, Information Governance Alliance is good for things around doing data audit. So look at those things. They're care specific.
So everyone's thinking, right? So Nick says something great. So we'll send this out. So everyone's scribbling furiously away, right? We'll send this out, and the links to that. So don't worry, you're not going to miss out.
Yeah, don't worry. And, I think it's more important just to go through the key things first. And as I said, I'll give you information to pass out, and it's openly out there. The ICO's website. I must admit, in the first time in a long time, it's really good. There's lots of positive information.
ICO as well. Yeah.
ICO website again. We'll put it on a little slide deck type thing. But if you type in ICO, Information Commission Office, it'll come up. Loads of information on there. You can even do a little self-assessment.
Right. Yeah.
So where you up to. But the key factor here is you need to document the journey. So, example, today you would document that I've had a 30-minute talk on GDPR. So then tomorrow you might look on the ICO website, document it, because it's showing you being proactive.
So to go on, so why do I need to document that?
Because at the end of the day, if you do have a breach, an incident, and unfortunately if it was investigated, and what happens is that, obviously people are supposed to be compliant by the 25th of May, but if they're not, when they come in, they want to see what action you've taken to trying to be compliant.
Right, okay.
So some people are going, it's nothing to do with you, don't worry about it. We do a lot of work with schools. One IT provider said to the school, it's all corporate, don't worry about schools. Oh my God, the worst piece of information. And as you can imagine, the phone call we had last week was pure panic. You've got to show, you've got to evidence this. This is no longer a tick box exercise. This is, you've got to evidence it like an ISO. You have a policy and a procedure, and when they audit you, you have to evidence. So the whole point here is that you've got to set out your plan and set, realistic timelines and meet them.
So in terms of, and again, I'm such a simple-minded infantryman, which
again, I won't comment on that one. Or would I agree on that one, should I say? I'd probably agree on that one, yeah.
If Rob Jones was on here tonight, he was saying you'd be chewing your crayons, couldn't you? So I'm thinking, right, so find out what data we've got.
Yeah.
In what form it's stored, paper or electronic, or otherwise it might be on notice boards. Again, people forget about that. I want to make sure then the wherever it's stored as well is safe and secure, and the only people who are accessing that are right. So, I'm putting now locks on doors and making sure that codes aren't sort of on the top right hand corner of that door, and passwords aren't underneath the keyboard. I want to talk to third parties to make sure that I want assurance from them, and there I want a bit of a statement from them saying that you're not selling my data or using it or sharing it with anyone else. I need to talk to my staff and say, look, this is how we're going to process your data. We're going to hold it for so many years. During that time, you have the right. So I'm going to make sure my policy is up to date. So right of erasure, right of request, right of
subject access requests. So they're very much. There's freedom of information requests, etc., for public bodies, but subject access requests, you need a procedure for that. So if somebody says, I would like all my information, because that in itself is a piece of work, because you've got to search your paper records, you've got to search your electronic records, which could include your email. And this is all quite daunting for small businesses. But the whole point, it's probably, like I say, it's this route, this path and this journey. There are plenty of templates out there around it. So don't think, oh my God, I've got to make one up. There are plenty of templates out there. We sometimes provide them for our clients, depending on their need. Sometimes the industry themselves provide them, and I think if you look at some of those areas, there may be. Now, the other option is to go out and buy a pack, and they're varying cost, and they'll give you a data protection policy, a retention policy, template, and you've got to populate that. But at least if you're working through it, you can show best practice. But get your data inventory look, get your privacy statements out, data protection policy. Archiving, everyone's got loads of it. Let's be honest, quite most people are hoarders in one way, shape or form. You've got to know what data you've got, and then is there a legal requirement to keep it? So personnel records, 6 years, HMRC. Is there any other legal requirement to keep any form of health and safety records? If there's an accident book, how long do you have to keep that for legally? If someone's been in an accident,
I'm being health and safety.
Sorry about that. Oh my God! Sorry, the whole point is that if someone has an accident, you've got to be able to keep it in case there's a claim against you, haven't you? So again,
it's 3 years. And 3 years. That's a child's under 21.
Yeah. So therefore, there is a legal requirement to keep that. So again, identify what the legal ones are, and then even as an inner circle, look at the other records you've got, and come as a group of people and go, well, we should only keep this type of document for that long.
Yeah.
And if there's a group of you, and it's 300 plus, you would think you would come to a reasonably good professional consensus on what that might be. So again, don't do it as an individual thing. Do it as a group of, as an inner circle. Why not give little projects out to little groups within it? So can you guys look at data protection policy for care homes? Can you look at that? This is what we've been saying to these groups of schools, and we've got 45 at the moment, and we're getting to work together so you guys do this, you do that, you do that.
I mean, the inner circle is all about don't reinvent the wheel, and that it's all about sharing is caring, as the team knows that. And so if anyone is already on this journey, if anyone has actually found some great resources, then please share it. So I know certainly I'll be looking at the policy, I'll upload that, and if that's of use to anyone, then absolutely fab. I know Nick's got some great sort of links here and places where, again, no doubt, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's have a little nosy around that, and let's see if there's anything we can collectively look at. So I've spoken to staff. I've assessment data. I've spoken to staff. I've looked at third parties in terms of the activities. And anything else, Nick? I need to be.
And then really, what you need to make sure is that you continue on that journey, that path, so that you put some form, as you would do. Really, what I would do is tie it into your think about privacy. If I do that, how will it affect my data? What you're doing is thinking ahead about how it will affect. So whether it's a new IT system, how's that being secured?
Yeah.
If I go down this route, if I use this type of application, can I send encrypted emails? Because really, definitely personally sensitive information should be sent now. Should be looking at being sent encrypted.
Yeah.
Now things like 365 and G Suite, they sometimes have applications that will allow you to send encrypted emails.
Right,
so again, the things about the sensitivity, that we can't cover in 30 minutes. A normal awareness session takes a day where you go through it. We can do something and it rules about 30 minutes, but it's really, like we are talking now, very highbrow. So we just talk about get the big things in first, then plan the rest of it. It's things like that, making sure your antivirus is up to date. Make sure you do your Windows updates. I know they're a pain in the backside, and they tend to be, during the day. Try and program them to be later in the day when no one's on the computer. But do them because these are the weak links that cause the vulnerabilities. So cybersecurity, the technical element is very important. Like you say, you may share a computer in an office. Try to get someone, if you know someone's computer, to set it that people can't keep stuff on the desktop. It can only be kept in their personal space
I'm a nightmare for that. So.
Yeah, number of times I've in my previous careers working with big corporates where we've gone in and it's been a shared work and somebody's left the disciplinary record of a member of staff on it, but the member of staff has access to that desktop, and all of a sudden they can see everything that's being said about it. So you can imagine the chaos that caused for the employer. So again, just be wary about it, think about it, challenge it before you send that email with a big lump of files and folders. Who am I sending it to, and am I sending it securely? Yeah. When people come and maybe take documents away, are they signing for them?
Because we do assessments. Like most people out there, they'll go and assess a client prior to possible admission, and of course we're going out there with potentially blank templates, but coming back with a lot of sensitive, clinical, personal sensitive information. So that then needs to be secured away. Whether it be scanned or whatever, but I've got to know that previously we might sort of put that into a care plan. And again, so I'm now thinking about the office, I'm thinking about the nurses station, the care planning, and how secure is that?
The fundamental part of anything like this, previously I've run sort of the security with physical people information and cyber, and where we've had cyber breaches or security incidents, predominantly it's because they've not followed the training or they've been given. So making sure the staff have good training and understand the risk, not to themselves, but to the individuals, your residents, and to the business. They've got to be part of it, and the awareness and the training is crucial in anything. In any part of any profession, you have training for a reason. This is just as important, especially now because of the fines. Now, don't get me wrong, you're obviously all not global entities where 18 million euros is a fine. I was at one school yesterday and they said, what about if I'm in deficit? Do they give me money? Which was quite a little funny thing there. So it's always going to be proportionate, but that proportionate fine or issue could be really, could be detrimental to the business. So again, have that evidence that you're doing things. Make sure your staff are trained. Make sure they're part of that program. Because if people don't buy into it, it's not going to work. I've had many examples of where staff were disgruntled, not happy, etc., not involved in things, they've got it wrong when they should have got it right. So again, training awareness, your policies, make sure that they are robust and the consequence to failure is robust, because this is half the problem, is that a lot of people go into and go, they just told me off, nothing really happened, I'd lost all that. No, you've got to be quite robust about this, because you're putting your business at risk.
Just making some notes here, I'm not being rude.
No, but like I say, it's one of these things, it's happening, it's becoming law. Nothing's been challenged in court yet, and I'm sure that will follow. The ICO isn't going to walk out the door on the 25th or the 26th of May and start knocking on doors unless they've got direct evidence that there's someone. They more than likely will go after the big boys first. However, what I will say is, it's when you start to breach will be a problem. Your other risk, to be perfectly honest, is the aggravated member of staff or parent or carers of the individual, your resident.
And everyone in the care sector is going, we don't have aggravated members of staff. They all
love you.
Us. Yeah, that's right. And particularly when you dismiss them.
Until you dismiss them. But even the guardians of the people whether it's the family, if they've got a bit of a grievance against you, this is very much going to be publicised, so you need to make sure that you've got the right responses, because they may try to use that. Some people saying, is it the next PPI? It very much could be, because there are opportunities. It's not just about ICO fines anymore. There's more. It's more likely that you will be taken for civil action. You can be taken, so therefore people might see it as a money earner. They may see that if they're paying for the service, that they may think they can get a discount, because if you don't, I'll write to the ICO and complain about you. And obviously reputation, there's the key issues. Their business's biggest risk, it's not the ICO coming in, it's actually that aggrieved staff or customers, if you want to call it. Who want to use the legislation as a big massive stick in order to hit the management with. If I ask the question, how many times have people come into your home or your homes and tried to use health and safety? This isn't safe. It's just the same thing. Why is my parents' data? Why is their medical file left on the table and their rooms left open? And it's again, it might be the resident's room, but it's not necessarily locked door. But why they've left the medical file in there? Because you're responsible for the medical file, so therefore someone's left it in, the door's open. We all know that people wander around in their homes and doors are open necessarily, so again, that's the type of thing. It's exactly the same as if health and safety legislation was coming in. Everyone will try and utilise it to benefit them, and unfortunately that's the type of culture we're in today. So protect yourself as much as possible. Well, I'm just in the final 2 minutes, and this has been absolutely fantastic, Nick, and thank you so much. I just want to summarise, but this is Cunningham summarising here, so this might be okay. So these are some areas that I see. So whoever you are, right? It's coming in on the 25th. So regardless, just let's do something about that. The next thing is, just have a bit of a survey. Get a notebook out, get a whiteboard out, and have a bit of a mental survey where you saw your data. Then look at your activities, from your invoicing, your processing, your assessments, whatever it might be, your recruiting. What is that process and pipeline? Look at your physical security of your computers, your notice boards, your archives, where you store. Might be that bag, Tesco's carry bag, but it's got a lot of paper in it. So look at where you're securing it, and is it access? Is it appropriate? Make sure you've got appropriate documentation in place, and I'm talking about policies now, and also you need to be informing your staff, your clients, your residents, your families that this is what we're going to be doing with your data, and we're reassuringly keeping it secure. Make sure your software and your IT is also up to date. So virus software, Windows updates, Nick were mentioned there, didn't even think of that, so all that sort of stuff. Make sure also training, your staff are being suitably trained, so they are also very aware that there is now, and we're quite aware in the care world because of patient confidentiality, but I think it goes much wider than that now in terms of staff, processors, clients, contractors. And the final one, which I bring, is document this journey. Make sure that you're not going to be caught with your proverbial trousers down. If someone says you've had a data breach, you can demonstrate that you've been as compliant as we possibly can. Trying the best you can. And that's it. And I think proportionate and appropriate to the size of the organisation. You can't be asked to do any more than the budget allows. No, that's super. Well, Nick, thank you so much, buddy. It was lovely to see you, and for all of you out there,
there are some great guys here who, and if any of you are concerned, then please get in touch with Nick. And I know on the inner circle we don't, but we've got Nick here. He's taken his time to come out and sit in our office here, and just with these big lights and the cameras all around him, and he's taken his time for that. And so if you're an organisation and you want a briefing, if you're a bigger organisation and there's several groups out there, then please get in touch with Nick. I'm going to put his details on there because he's taken his time out, and that's what it's all about. Caring, sharing is caring. We're going to upload. He's got some great stuff here. Again, some of you might or might not have seen. We'll put those infographics on the website, on the inner circle, and there you go. So Nick, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
So there you go, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to call this a day, and remember, the 25th is fast approaching. See you very soon.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.